Welcome to the Birth Boot Camp podcast, your trusted guide on your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. I'm Holly, your host, along with Cheryl, Megan, and Liana that make up the Birth Boot Camp headquarters team. Together, we are here to explore the amazing world of childbirth and family wellness. Each week, we'll dive into empowering conversations with expert guests and share practical insights and heartfelt stories to support you on your unique path to parenthood. Whether you're expecting your first baby, you're a seasoned doula or childbirth educator, or simply curious about the miracle of birth, you're in the right place. Together, we'll celebrate the beauty of birth, honor the strength of motherhood, and embrace the joy of new beginnings. So sit back, relax, and join us on the Birth Boot Camp podcast, where every birth is amazing, every family is supported, and every story matters. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode on the Birth Boot Camp podcast. I'm Holly Hopley, the CEO.
I'm Liana Wolf, the administrator.
And today we are really excited.
And I'm Susan.
Oh, that's fine. You're okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. We have
There was
Susan
a minute
Johnson.
there was a break and I'm like, oh goodness.
That's all right. It's always fun trying to get like people's internet to sync up.
Huh?
So that's just the fun of podcasting. So no problem. We have Susan Johnson with us. She's one of our instructors. And we are super excited because we're going to talk all about gestational diabetes, which surprisingly, in the 3 years we've had our podcast, we've never really talked about it. So I'm really excited to have this topic to be covered and have all this information. So will you start out and just share kind of who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. My name is Susan and I live in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I received my certification back in February for birthing education. And I absolutely love it. It is one of my favorite things. However, since 2019, I have been doing diabetes education. And now I only do gestational diabetes education. And it is one of the most important things that a pregnant woman can do is to find out, because it not only affects her, but herself or her baby. I'm married. I have a 23-year-old child. And before I took your course, it's so funny, your course has opened my eyes to so many things. Before I took your course, I had a C-section. I was only a C-section person, okay? I had all these ideas, and now my son's 23. I regret not having him vaginally. I regret not trying to breastfeed. I regret all this different stuff. I regret having so many things done because I was just following what I thought was the easy path, and I was not educated. So now I really am trying my hardest to educate every patient that we have on what is available and to give birth so they remember. It's just it's a good thing. This is a memory that'll last a lifetime. And they don't need to be all drugged up. Sorry, but I was all drugged up for 48 hours, and I don't remember the first 48 hours of my son's life.
I think it's interesting. I think that you use the word regret, because I never want a mom to feel like that they didn't do a good enough job or anything like that. Like you were doing the best you could with the information you had. And
well, yes, but back then all we had, there was some internet, but I had the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Oh.
And I read that book religiously, like every single day. Your baby's the size of a peanut. Your baby's the size of a walnut. It has arm buds. It has leg buds. And as I was reading the birthing part of it, it scared me. And I did not know. That's what
that book is good for.
Right. I did not know all these other things that you could do for a birth. And I had gestational diabetes. So we did not have a class. I was not told to monitor my blood sugar.
Oh, wow.
So I gave birth at 34 weeks to 34 weeks on the dot, to a 7-pound, 2-ounce baby boy,
Wow.
which is extremely large.
Yeah, 34
And
weeks.
my doctor told me if I would have went the full 40 weeks, he would have been between 14 and 16 pounds.
Wow.
And that's because I did not know that you were not supposed to eat carbs and you're supposed to focus on protein.
Yeah.
So that, there's so many things here to learn that I had no idea.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna back up a few steps and let's first, what is gestational diabetes?
Gestational diabetes it's a form of diabetes that starts between the 28th and 32nd week of pregnancy normally. And insulin is a hormone. And our bodies when we're pregnant we're already producing so many hormones, and it's just kind of crazy. So it's either not allowed, your body's not producing enough insulin for that baby in you, or your body could be producing the insulin. However, your body is insulin resistant and your cells are not using the insulin the way that it needs to. It's just kind of storing the insulin as fat and not using it for energy to coincide with the glucose to give you energy.
Right.
So, and gestational diabetes, 99.9% of the time goes away after you give birth. Some women do have to be on insulin, some women do not. But there are some women that are more prone to it, especially if you have a family history or you are overweight when you become pregnant.
So is there anything that we can do to prevent gestational diabetes?
No, there is not. It is just one of those things that it's either going to happen or it's not. I have had people that have had it one pregnancy, not the next, that they've never had it. Then all of a sudden they become pregnant and have it. I have people right now that eat perfect and they still end up with gestational diabetes.
Our bodies just do what they're going to do. We don't
exactly
have a lot of control.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that sometimes you hear that, like, if you eat this like super clean whole foods diet, like you have no chance of getting it. And I'm like, I've had clients who they like eat a picture perfect diet. They're doing everything. They're getting the protein. They're not eating the junk and the carbs and the sugar and stuff like that. But yeah, you can still get it even if you have
exactly
the cleanest diet ever.
I had a patient last Friday that she does not eat anything processed. It is all organic foods. They raise their own meat. So it's, their chicken, their beef, everything, even their fish, everything is farm raised at their house. And age has a lot to do with it also. So if you're 25 or older, you're not considered geriatric as far as pregnancy goes until you're 35. However, with diabetes, you're considered geriatric at 25.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
So, yes. So
your chance of having it goes up if you're older than 25?
Yes, 25 or older. And that's because, once we start our menses, our bodies are ready to have a baby at that point in time. And 200 plus years ago, that happened. At 13, women were pregnant and married and had babies. And by the time they were 25, we had a shorter lifespan. They were having grandchildren and they were done having babies. So our bodies have kind of have like a 12-year span on that for gestational diabetes. I would have to tell you over 95% of my patients are 25 and over.
That's so interesting. So can you explain kind of the testing for gestational diabetes and what that looks like and kind of what those options are and things?
Sure. We have some people, they have a test so it's a glucola test, and it is like pure syrup, like
So
a
gross.
sugary syrup.
Yep.
Okay. If you went to Sunkist and you said, I just want the orange syrup, that's what it would be like.
Mhm.
So the glucola test they take, it is 75 grams of that glucose, that syrup, which now they have different flavors, and they put it in 250 to 300 milliliters of water. And you drink it based upon your weight. They take a fasting blood sugar. Then they take one hour later, and then 2 hours later. The thing is most of the time you're allowed to leave. You cannot leave during that time, and it has to be done fasting. Like, you cannot have anything to eat or drink 6 hours before you come in. So if you do not pass the 1 hour or the 2 hour, then you'll have to come back in, re-drink it,
Mhm.
and then wait for 3 hours.
Right.
Now, I do have patients that, like if they have a family history, stuff like that, I'll ask to have an A1C drawn like around 14, 16 weeks.
Mhm.
People that I know.
Yeah.
And if it is their A1C shows pre-diabetes, we go ahead and have them pattern. And I do have some patients that refuse to take the glucola. And if they do refuse to do that, then we just have them pattern for a couple of weeks
Mhm.
and just see how it goes. Don't change your
Yeah.
diet, just pattern. And then I'll see them and I'll read their logs and see if we need to be making any changes.
What are your thoughts about like everybody's kind of like, I don't want to drink the glucose drink, but like I've heard that the jelly beans or there's all these different things that you hear
Oh,
out
I
there
know.
that people
It
are
doesn't
like, oh,
work.
you can
The
do this.
glucose, and it's all because of the taste of it. And honestly, just drink it down. I mean, the jelly beans does not work that well. Even if someone is having a hypoglycemic attack, jelly beans do not work that well to raise the glucose to raise your blood sugar fast enough.
Mhm.
So I've heard the jelly beans, I've heard sweet tarts, people just wanting to drink straight out Coke, and you would have to drink a lot to get that much glucose in your system that fast.
Mhm.
Because it's not like they ask you to drink it in 5 minutes. You have, 15, 30 minutes to drink it in. And it's not like, it's based upon your weight. So you may have
So
100
that's one thing I didn't realize, because I feel like I've just seen that they just hand the same bottle to everybody.
No, it's based upon your weight, however much you're drinking.
Interesting.
So, which is good. And everyone, but they do have bottles that may have different amounts in it. Okay. So not every hospital, maybe larger hospitals just buy all these bottles with different amounts in it. Some hospitals may mix theirs up. I think everything just depends upon the size of the location that you're at and what your doctor does.
Right. That's true. That can affect those types of things.
Yes.
Yeah. My midwife's office, we used grape juice is what they used. If you didn't. Yeah. Which I found much more palatable than the glucola that I had with my first. So numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5, I did grape juice, and it was much better.
I can understand that. So, and I do think that I have a cousin who is over a midwifery program at a large college, and she just has her patients just pattern. Instead of drinking anything, she'll start them off at like 26 weeks and have them pattern for about a month.
Yeah. That's what I chose to do after because I did the glucose drink with my first, and that drink just made me so sick. Just sugar in general makes me sick when I'm pregnant. And so I was like, I just can't do it. I'm like, that drink alone just about makes me pass out. And so I was like, I would rather take my blood sugar every day for my entire pregnancy than drink that. So, um, so yeah, so we just watched it for a few weeks.
And now it's so easy. I mean, if your doctor would just, if you want to, you can just have your doctor prescribe you just like a Libre.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
so
can
easy
check
to
it
have those
yourself
things
as soon as
nowadays.
you wake up
Mm-hmm.
and just check it like that. And that's, I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's interstitial fluid, but it's going to give you the same results.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have actually have patients that's how they check their blood sugar. They had rather pay for that than poke their fingers.
Oh, see, I'll poke my fingers any day. It's not that big of a deal.
It's not that big of a deal to me either. I mean, I do both.
Yeah. Yep. So let's start. So if somebody tests positive, what should they be eating? Because that's what a lot of people hear. You can control a lot of it with your diet, and exercise and things like that. So what are things that you recommend? Kind of how does that work?
So basically, when someone is tested positive, that I receive a phone call and I schedule an appointment with them. And when they come in, I like for them to have done, 2 or 3 days minimum monitoring, just so I get an idea of where we're starting from. But with most of my pregnant women, unless we cannot get a sugar, get it down, all of them, I start off on 30 grams of carbs per day, or per meal, excuse me, 30 grams of carbs per meal. We want a fasting blood sugar to be less than 95, which they need to take within 10 minutes of waking up. And then 2 hours after each meal, it needs to be 120 or below. And what I try to tell them is, let's focus your meals and your snacks around a protein. Every time you eat, you need to eat a protein.
Yeah.
So I have forms and little printouts that, they can have as much protein as they want. That is not something that we need to limit. Then we have our free vegetables. Those are anything from green beans to broccoli to even carrots are free vegetables. Onions, a whole list, water chestnuts, a whole list of free vegetables. I tell people, if they get hungry and they decide that they want to wake up and eat all day long, I have 3 pages that is protein, free vegetables, and your fats, which includes peanut butter, nuts, and avocados. You can eat that all day long. You can start off by eating and eat something for 30 minutes and go to the next. Your blood sugar will never go up. What raises it is when you get to processed foods, or when you get to like potatoes. And people think that, oh, well, I'll have I'm people. When I say people, I'm people, because this is what I thought. And I'm actually type 2 diabetic now, but I thought that sweet potatoes were better for you. And it's the same as a white potato as far as carbs go. So half of a cup, and I have my cups beside me that I show them, this is how much potato you can have at a meal. Same thing as beans, whether it be pinto beans or pinto beans, navy beans, any type of beans besides barbecue. Barbecue is a 1/3 cup, but 1/2 cup of beans. Rice. Our biggest issue that I have is a lot of pregnant women we always crave what we can't have. So they crave pasta. And then I have a lot of Hispanic women coming to see me. I live in a town, or I live in Arkansas. We have a racetrack that's less than a mile from the hospital. We have a lot of Hispanic people in this city, and we actually service 10 counties that are underserved. We go in and give them prenatal care that they normally would never receive.
Yeah.
So rice, pasta, 1/3 of a cup is 15 carbs. And if you look at that and you look at, 1/3 of a cup, they eat that. That's like one bite to some of them, 2 bites. And if you think about a spaghetti and you're, rolling it up, that's not very much food. So
Right.
you just have to make these simple changes. And I think about, and we can do anything for 10 weeks. We can
That's a good way to put it.
We can do anything. Increase your water. So I have them 30 grams of carbs per meal. Minimum 80 ounces of protein. Or 80 grams of protein. Yes, 80 ounces of protein, okay? We want the protein. Protein. I don't care if at nighttime they don't know what to have for a snack. You just go get you a tablespoon, put it in peanut butter, and sit there while you're watching a movie and lick it. That's what I do. And at least minimum 100 ounces of water a day, 100 to 120. And after supper, do not eat dinner later than 6:30. And then try to walk in place. I tell them, don't go outside and sweat, because I hate to sweat. I'm going to do anything I can to avoid sweating.
You're in the wrong region for that.
Girl, let me tell you, when I took my childbirth education class and I had to go to Texas, even though it was in February, I so wanted to come up north to take it instead of having to drive to Texas. Because I'm like, oh, they have snow and it is cold. And
I was going to say, you should have come to mine in January. We were freezing our butts off.
Well, I actually thought about that, but they said, oh, but there's one closer, anyways. So, but I tell them, don't sweat. If you don't like cold weather, don't do that. And with the way the world is today, don't get kidnapped. Just stand in front of your TV, turn on your favorite TV program after dinner, and walk in place for 30 minutes. Just walk in place. And then have a protein snack at bedtime, just only protein. That helps keep your fasting blood sugar lower. And it's not a hard thing. And I thought when I was actually diagnosed, there's nothing I can eat. There's no foods, and there's so many foods. And I tell people, when you have your baby shower, eat the cake. Not a huge piece, but eat the cake. Just drink a couple of extra glasses of water and go for a walk, maybe right afterwards if you can. Just do some kind of movement afterwards. Stay in, do something for about 30 minutes, but eat the cake. Don't miss out on your baby shower, because that's a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
When I tell that to my doula clients anyway, who don't have gestational diabetes, like, if you've got a craving for something sweet, don't ignore it, but make it worth it. And drink a lot of water. Like, make sure you're getting it through your system, so it's not just sitting. Because I'm always like, if you want a cookie, go buy a good one from a bakery. Don't go buy a pack of them from the grocery store.
Right. That's the whole thing. Right, exactly. And make sure you're moving afterwards. If you're diabetic, gestational, make sure you're not just, you drink that water drink. I mean, I'm telling them 40 ounces of water at least, okay, extra.
Wow.
Plus, let's walk some more. Let's get some weights. Let's do some hand weights and just do arms, because that, burns glucose longer. That burns glucose 12 to 24 hours if you do some kind of strengthening exercise. I really, during my birthing education classes, I really encourage people to do lunges, to do squats if they're able to, because that, uses your glucose. It burns it, but not only are we preparing for birth, but if you're diabetic, you're knocking out 2 in 1.
Yeah.
And that's just a win-win.
Yeah. Okay, so what about, let's kind of like shift. So what if maybe diet and exercise isn't enough? What are kind of the options after that if they need to use like insulin, or I know a lot of people talk about like metformin and things like that. Can you kind of explain those things?
Well, metformin really is not used anymore
Oh,
for
okay.
pregnant women. It is not a first line as far as the standards of care goes. That metformin is not for pregnant women. It can be used, and a lot of women that come in that are already on it, we will continue that to a certain degree, okay, or for so long. But first of all, I try everything I have. I see them 2 and 3 times a week. At times I will see them every week. They talk them. I have my cell phone number. I get calls at 10:30 at night. I do my best to try to get those numbers down. But like you said, there are times that no matter what we do, no matter what they do, their number's just not going to come down. And it's not their fault. They're doing everything they can, but their body is just not going to make that insulin. Their body is just not going to allow their insulin to work the proper way it should. So normally they start them off on a long-term or a long-acting insulin. And normally it's because of their fastings are high. Because a 95 or below fasting is really a low fasting for just average people. So when we see 97, 98, 99, if it's over 100, it's for sure. But if we see a trend going from like 97 to 103 every morning, and we've done everything we can, they're walking, they're drinking their water. I mean, I'll have them bring me in a chow chart, every single thing that you are doing. And it doesn't work. It's not working. So at that point in time, they'll usually start them off, on 6 to 10 units of insulin at nighttime. And then the rest of it, basically, the only time they're given the insulin after the meal is when those patients do not want to follow what they need to be eating. We have a lot of patients that they're just going to choose the Coke and the Doritos, the pizza and the Taco Bell, and going to Olive Garden, and that's more important. And so at that point in time, they may have to take long-acting and short-acting insulin, calculate, and then it still doesn't come down a lot of times because they eat more. But they eat more carbs than what they're calculating for. And that's whenever you risk yourself having a large baby. And people do not realize that when you have uncontrolled gestational diabetes, you are actually risking your life, your child's life, but also you're risking the fact that your child could weigh 14 to 16 pounds or more. Your chances of having a C-section are so much greater if it's uncontrolled. your baby could be born addicted to sugar. And I try to tell people that when they don't want to follow this way of eating, which is healthy way of eating. And like I said, we can do anything first of all, for your child, you can do anything, but for 10 weeks, 11 weeks, we can do anything. And if they choose not to, that baby can be born addicted to glucose. And I try to tell them it's just like a baby being born addicted to meth. That baby goes straight to the NICU when that baby's blood sugar, because as soon as that umbilical cord's cut, their sugar supply is cut. So their blood sugar tanks. They're having to be given the insulin. They have to be, or not the insulin, but the glucose. Have an IV put in. You've got this little 3-hour baby with an IV receiving dextrose. And it can take weeks at times to get their blood sugar stable.
Wow.
And people don't understand, and I had one patient that she didn't understand why that was happening. But yet, whenever I actually took her, while she was here, I took her a copy of her logs and what she was eating and told her, I said, this is what you were eating. You would order Domino's. You would have a sundae. You would eat a chocolate bar. All these times I told you to quit drinking the Coke. This is the result. Now your baby is laying here and you can't go home for a week and a half. And it was just, she had twins. And for the twins to be over 7 pounds apiece, that's large. And she was at 36, 37 weeks, about 36 and a half weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot encourage and get the point across enough to anyone with gestational diabetes. It's not, people think it's us just trying to control you, and it's not. This is for your baby. This is for you. It makes it harder for your baby to breathe. But when your baby comes out and they're taken straight to NICU, it's a scary thing for mom and for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's I kind of feel like I'm seeing like a lot of extremes lately with a lot of people are like, oh, gestational diabetes, not a big deal. Like,
Yes.
Or it's like people on the other extreme, and I'm like, I think moms just need more information about it. I think that, so I'm so glad that like we're talking about this, because I don't think people realize that it really can affect your health and especially your baby's health.
I agree. And that's the doctors that I have here they're so encouraging. And anytime I meet with someone, I just send them a message and they listen to what I have to say. And I might say, hey, this person's not going to do this, or they're doing this. Can we give them an extra week? They're really trying. And I have the support. And I'm so thankful and so appreciative of that, of all of my physicians.
Mm-hmm.
But people do, I've watched it on social media that they just really, they think that it's almost like like I said, it's almost like a scam, like a way. I've heard people saying, oh, well, they just want us to drink that just so they can charge extra. Or, what did people do years ago before there was a test?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a lot of infant deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And, if maybe, and sometimes maybe a mother doesn't test positive at 32 weeks, but all of a sudden you see her, she's at 37 weeks, she's at 115% the size of what she should be. The baby is.
Yeah.
Test her again. Test her, just draw some blood and let's check what her glucose is.
Yeah.
Because there is a late onset gestational.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says, well, I was 10 pounds, but my mother didn't have it, or I was 11 pounds, there's a pretty good sign there.
Mm-hmm. I had a client once who She labored and labored and labored, the longest birth I've ever been at. But we were not getting anywhere, and she was on like the highest dose of Pitocin and everything. And so she did eventually have a C-section. And I'm sitting in her room with her mom, and she's showing me pictures of this person. And I'm like, I don't even know who this is. Like, this does not even look like my client. She's like, no, that's her. And like, comes to find out, she had gained over 100 pounds during her pregnancy, and her baby was 13 pounds. And she was like, but I tested negative. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. Like, without there being, and that's why I was like,
Well,
I think they didn't catch it.
Right. And she could have had late onset.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've never heard of that. So I'm glad that you
Yes,
said something.
she could have
because
had
I'm like,
late
I bet
onset,
that's
but
what it was.
also, you know, gestational diabetes and preeclampsia kind of go hand in hand. So when you have high blood sugar, normally you have high blood pressure.
Okay.
So stress causes our blood sugar to go up.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many factors that can increase blood sugar.
Yeah.
And increase blood pressure at the same time. And so that is something else that we really have to watch out. If they're all of a sudden testing or, you know, having high blood sugar or high blood pressure towards the end, maybe we should check them, have them pattern, maybe suggest, you know, if you are using a midwife, maybe the midwife could draw or have someone go, you know, suggest go in and let's just have a fasting blood drawing.
Right.
That would not be
just to check.
a bad situation to be in. Yeah, because like I said, I had both. I had preeclampsia. I think, and I really feel like it was due to my gestational diabetes because I could not eat meat. All I could eat was, unfortunately, crab and lobster. So that's the only thing that didn't make me sick. And I live in Arkansas. So,
right.
you know, but I'd have to go somewhere on the weekends to eat that. And then, but all I craved was fried potatoes, cornbread, and black eyed peas 3 times.
All the carbs.
All the carbs, yes. And I did not look like myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But, you know, I couldn't believe it when I was diagnosed with it. But then, you know, if you're diagnosed with gestational diabetes, you have a greater chance of developing type 2 later on.
Right. Yeah, I have heard
and
that.
especially if it's uncontrolled.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one reason why I know a lot of midwives, they really talk to their patients about, like, you know, kind of like the chow charts of like writing down what you're eating, really making sure you're getting enough protein. And, you know, it's like every pregnant woman should be eating that much, like, and getting all of that protein. And it's like, if we can help get them started on that kind of stuff sooner rather than later, you know.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
And so many people balk at that. They're like, I don't want to write down everything I eat. I don't want to track all this stuff. And I'm like, but it could be so beneficial.
That's the thing. They don't want to write it down because it takes too much time. Or, you know, I tell them, let's focus your meal around your protein.
Mm-hmm.
So before you eat or your snack, what protein are you going to have?
Right.
So then let's build from that. And if they start doing that early, then it makes it easier later on. Most people build their meals, or a lot of times what I'm seeing is people building their meals around the carbs. Oh, I can have this side and this side and this side. And a lot of people just have sides.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, you know, groceries are so expensive these days.
Right.
I have gone through and I found dollar store, like from the $1.25 store.
Mm-hmm.
I have how to survive gestational diabetes off of that.
Oh, that's cool.
And
That's
I
a
give
great
that
resource.
out to patients.
Mm-hmm.
So I print out everything. I print out, you know, exercises they can do, what they do, samples of food, samples of going out to eat. You know, when someone goes to Sonic versus McDonald's, which I know is not the best thing to be saying, but I'm going to tell you, pregnant women do this. Okay. People do it all the time.
Yep.
And whenever they do that, and Sonic hamburgers, because they're so much larger, they don't think about that bread because their diameter is larger. That bread has so many more carbs.
Yeah.
They have like 20 more carbs than a McDonald's hamburger.
Yeah. People don't think about that.
No.
No.
So, and I like to print out stuff like that. I like to find everything that the person needs. And if they're not able to afford the protein, which, I live in not the best state to have gestational diabetes in. However, we have a lot of food pantries, and we actually give out boxes of foods here. But we actually have food pantries that will give out for diabetes. And I went and I talked to the person over our WIC program last week. And I'm going to try to make an appointment with the FDA because I want to make a change. And I feel like that's something that I can do. Is if someone with, like, for example, milk, whether it's whole milk, 2%, 1%, whatever, skim, all of that, 8 ounces is 15 carbs. And if you drink some milk with your meal, and that's what WIC is paying for, that's half your carbs for that meal. But if you had almond milk, that doesn't have carbs. But WIC won't pay for almond milk.
Right.
So I just feel like if that person had maybe a diagnosis, and we could do something and let them know, maybe they could change
Get some more stuff that would
able
actually be good for them.
So that's my goal now, is to go to and try to do something on that level. Because they need it. And here, the southern states, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, we have a lot of people that are able to afford it. So, and I really, when you have someone that tells me that they're living off of tuna fish, which is great for, for the baby's brain. Oh, tuna fish is amazing for the baby. But, they've got to be getting tired of it. So, but that's a big thing, is we need to, educate them that even milk has carbs in it.
Yeah. That's so good. It's like things that you don't even think about. Like, I wouldn't have really thought about, like, I think in the back of my head, I knew that about milk, like, but not like, I just don't think about that. So about those types of things.
No, I have people coming in all the time, and they're like, I'm like, what do you drink? Milk. How much milk do you drink? Well, I have it in the morning, and then I may have a glass or two, for a snack, or if I'm hungry and I don't want to eat, I'll have a glass of milk, and by the time we finish,
that's like all their
5
carbs.
or 6 glasses of milk a day.
Wow.
And that's all your carbs. And they're not, and then they're eating all this stuff. So after you get finished, that's, whenever they make these changes, it's a whole different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want people, and that's one thing that I've really learned, and I really want to get across to our childbirth educators, is that as an educator, if we're going over the nutrition with patients and we're telling them to eat this, this, and this, we need to find out if they're diabetic, because like with the white foods, the potatoes, that's not something they can do every day. A banana, and this is what, fruits, they need their fruits, but a banana, 1/2 of 4 ounces of a banana. So if you took a banana and cut it up, 4 ounces of it is 15 carbs. That's 1/2 of a cup. That's not a lot of banana.
Right.
So one banana, and that's just a half of a banana. One whole banana, if it was 8 ounces, is your whole meal's worth.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have that with an egg, couple of eggs, and maybe some sausage or something like that for breakfast. But to me, is it worth it? Or had you rather have two small cuties and something else? You know, maybe 2 pieces of the 45-calorie toast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I feel like we should also, I want to offer my patients that, or that I do for my diabetic patients. And whenever I'm doing my childbirth education, there are times that I do different classes. And one of them is like just a bunch of diabetics together, gestational
Mm-hmm.
diabetics.
Yeah. I think that could be helpful.
It can be.
And knowing that you're in a room with people that we're all doing the same thing. Yeah.
Right.
It is because, whenever I go to order lunch
Mm-hmm.
or whatever I'm doing, it is so hard for them whenever they're watching someone else, eating pizza
Yeah.
or eating
Right.
whatever, and they're sitting there having something that they can't have. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard because then the other people don't want it. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah.
watching this.
Do you have any like book recommendations or websites or just like any resources like for people who want to learn more or anything like that? Do
I
you
will
have any good
tell you
ones?
that the one thing that I suggest everyone do that wants to learn, go to the ADA website. And if you're a patient, just read about gestational diabetes. If you're an educator or a doula, midwife, they have a program up at the top and it says specialist or professional. And you can go through and learn. It is for CEs, but you can just put in gestational diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And it has so much information that you go through.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Things change every day. I use that. I use the ADCES website.
Mm-hmm.
Clinical Key for Nursing, which is, you can type that in. But mostly I try to go by what our standards of care are for the year. And I'm at this point in time in either August to October, I'm not sure, but I'll be testing for my CDCES. So I'll be a certified diabetic educator because I've been doing this since 2019.
Yeah.
And so it's time to get certified in that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been super like helpful and I mean, I learned a ton. So
I will tell you,
yeah.
if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to email me or even call me. Like I said, my goal in life is just to educate as many people as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I have tons of handouts. I'd be happy to email you.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah,
of
we'll put your information in our notes so anybody who's listening and wants to reach out, they can get in touch with you.
Yes, because it's so important. I mean, I even give out examples, like I said, of food places wherever you're going to go eat. You can go look it up yourself, but if you actually look at it and see it while you're in here, sometimes here's my final thing I'll say about this. If you go to Texas Roadhouse and order a sweet potato loaded, it's 128 carbs.
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow.
Oh yeah. All that brown sugar and marshmallow and butter.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you go to Sonic and you get, so I have people that say, well, I just went to Sonic and blueberry or blackberry is sugar free. So I got a blackberry slush. Well, their slush is sugar water. It's got sugar in it. So it's
right.
And Chick-fil-A, their diet lemonade has 16 carbs for a medium. It still has sugar.
Yeah.
So there's certain things like this that you don't know unless you go looking.
Right.
Which is pretty, I mean, it amazes me. And this is things that affect our babies.
Yep.
And
yeah, I think
just
knowing
want the
that
world to know.
that it is serious, like it is serious, and you do need to do something about it because it will affect your baby.
It is very serious, yes.
Yeah.
And that is what, like I said, this information that I have is when people read it, they're in shock because they come in here thinking that it's no big deal and that they'll just, stop eating that candy bar every morning or at nighttime.
Right.
And then by the time they leave, they realize that not only is their baby's life at risk, but their life also.
Yep. Well, thanks so much for being on here.
Thank you for
so
having
good.
me.
So yeah, we'll put lots of information in the notes for everybody. I know I'm like, we need to talk more about this subject. So
I love it. There's so many different things of it. I mean, you can break it down into just different exercises. You can break it down into foods. You can break it down into self-care, because that's what when I'm educating, I have like one that's just the diagnosis, and I go over this. It's just the diagnosis with them. Okay. Then this is self-care, and I go over just self-care things. Monitoring. Oh my goodness, you would not believe that one. Exercise during pregnancy, all about exercise. And my favorite, especially to see their face, is the large for gestational age baby. And that's before we ever talk about food.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just education on their body and their baby.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thanks for being such a great resource for this. We appreciate it. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for listening this week, everybody. If you have questions, please reach out to Susan, and we will talk to you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Birth Boot Camp podcast. We're so grateful to have you as a part of our community. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it valuable, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more families on their journey through pregnancy and birth. As a token of our appreciation, we're excited to offer you our exclusive birth plan blueprint. Inside, you'll find expert guidance and a template to help you create a birth plan that reflects your preferences and desires for your birthing experience. Simply click the link below in the episode description to have your blueprint sent right to your inbox. Remember, your birth plan is a powerful tool for communication and advocacy during labor and delivery. Don't miss this opportunity to take control of your birthing experience and advocate for the birth you envision. Thank you again for listening. Be sure to subscribe, and we look forward to sharing more amazing insights and stories with you in